This is a Japanese sentence. Let's count the writing systems in it. That first character, that's kanji, borrowed from China 15 centuries ago. The small curved symbols connecting everything, that's hiragana, invented by Japanese scribes in the 9th century. And the word in the middle, that's katakana, a third system, 3 writing systems in one sentence, sometimes even within the same word. No other major languages uses multiple writing systems this extensively in everyday text. And it didn't happen by design. It happened because Japan borrowed China's writing system 1,500 years ago, and it was the wrong fit from day one. So instead of starting over, Japan kept inventing new systems and stacking them on top of each other for 15 centuries. The result is one of the most complex everyday writing systems used by any modern nation. The wildest part? It works perfectly. Welcome to the Airlearn Language Show. Japanese is one of those languages that looks impossible from the outside. 3 scripts, thousands of characters, and a grammar that works nothing like any European language. People see it and assume it takes a decade to get anywhere. It doesn't, but you need the right way in. Which is actually a perfect moment to mention. If Japanese is on your list or even just on your radar, see what this person had to say about learning it on Airlearn. That's exactly what Japanese needs. Link is in the description. Now, how did this writing system actually happen? Around the 5th century CE, Japan had a fully developed spoken language and no writing system. China had the most advanced civilization in East Asia and a script that had been evolving for over 1,000 years. The move felt obvious. Japan imported Chinese characters wholesale. The problem was structural, and it was immediate. Chinese is an isolating language. Each character is roughly 1 syllable, 1 unit of meaning. Grammar is handed through word order and context. There are almost no verb endings, no case particles, no grammatical suffixes. A Chinese sentence is essentially a string of independent meaning blocks. Japanese is the opposite. It is agglutinative, meaning grammar is expressed by attaching endings and particles onto words. Verb conjugates extensively. Particles after nouns indicate whether something is the subject, the object, the location, the direction. The end of a sentence determines whether it's a question, a command, or a statement of fact. Everything that matters grammatically happens in the part that Chinese characters were completely unable to represent. It was like wearing someone else's skeleton. The Chinese characters could carry meaning, but couldn't carry the language. And Japan, rather than abandoning the characters, spent the next 15 centuries engineering solutions. Kanji. Japan adopted Chinese characters and immediately made them more complicated. In Chinese, a character has 1 reading. In Japanese, most characters have at least 2. The onyomi, which is the approximate Chinese pronunciation imported with the character, and the konyomi, which is the native Japanese word for the same concept mapped onto it. The character, mountain. In Chinese-derived reading, sun. In native Japanese reading, yama. Same character, 2 readings. Which one applies depends on context, on what other characters surround it, on whether it's part of a compound word or standing alone. Some characters have 5 or more readings. The character, relating to life, birth, raw, fresh, has so many readings that it appears in Japanese dictionaries with a small paragraph just listing them. There are 2,136 kanji designated by the Japanese government as the standard set for daily use. Educated adults typically know more. Japanese children spend their entire school career accumulating them, learning hiragana first, then katakana, then gradually absorbing kanji year by year until graduation. This is not memorization in the way Western students memorize vocabulary. Each kanji is a meaning, a set of readings, a set of contexts, and a stroke order. Learning them is closer to learning to draw 2,000 small pictures, each of which can be pronounced different ways depending on the sentence it sits in. Hiragana. The borrowed characters could handle meaning, but they still couldn't handle grammar. Japanese needed a way to write verb endings, connecting particles and native words that had no Chinese equivalent. The solution came from an unexpected place. In the 8th and 9th centuries, Japanese scribes began simplifying kanji into flowing cursive symbols that represented pure sound rather than meaning. These weren't new inventions. They were kanji stripped down to their phonetic essence, simplified until they became something new. This became hiragana. Here's the part that history mostly glossed over. Hiragana was primarily developed and used by women at the imperial court, women who were actively discouraged by studying proper Chinese characters, which were considered the domain of male scholars and bureaucrats. The establishment dismissed hiragana as women's writing, an inferior informal script. Then, Murasaki Shikibu wrote the Tale of Genji in hiragana around the year 1000 CE. The Tale of Genji is often considered the world's first novel. A psychologically sophisticated, structurally complex, emotionally precise account of life at the Heian court, written in the script that male scholars had called beneath serious literature. In the script the establishment dismissed, a woman produced one of the greatest works in the history of world literature. Today, hiragana is the first script Japanese children learn. It is the foundation. The thing the court thought was informal and secondary turned out to be the entry point into the entire language. Katakana. While hiragana was evolving in the imperial court, something different was happening in the monasteries. Buddhist monks studying Chinese texts needed a way to annotate pronunciation, quick margin notes to remind themselves how a character was read. They developed a system of taking fragments of kanji, single corners or isolated strokes, and turning them into compact phonetic symbols. This became katakana, angular where hiragana is curved, built for speed and annotation rather than literary flow. For centuries, katakana was technically shorthand. Then, Japan opened to the West in the 1860s, and everything changed. Thousands of new concepts arrived with no Japanese words for them. Coffee, electricity, cinema, telephone. Katakana became the landing strip for foreign vocabulary, the designated system for words arriving from outside. The rule is simple and elegant. If a word came from abroad, write it in katakana. Coffee, television, internet, smartphone. Coffee is a good example of a katakana loanword, but it entered Japanese through Dutch, not English. Every time a new foreign concept enters Japanese, katakana absorbs it. The system built by monks annotating scripture in the 9th century is now the system handling the entire vocabulary of the modern globalized world. A single Japanese sentence might move through all three systems in the space of 10 words. Kanji carries the core meaning, the nouns, the roots of verbs, the conceptual weight of the sentence. Hiragana carries the grammar, the verb endings that indicate tense and formality, the particles that tell you what role each word plays, the connective tissue of the sentence. Katakana handles everything derived from outside, the brand name, the foreign concept, the English word that slipped in. A native Japanese reader moves between these three systems mid-sentence without conscious effort. They're not switching modes the way a bilingual speaker switches languages. The three scripts are experienced as one coherent system with different registers. The way a fluent English reader doesn't consciously notice the difference between reading king and sovereign, even though one is Old English and one is French. The complexity is real, but so is the payoff. Kanji allows Japanese to pack information with extraordinary density. Japanese newspaper headlines convey in 5 characters what English needs 15 words to say. And kanji resolves a problem built into the Japanese language itself. Japanese has a massive number of homophones, words that sound identical but mean completely different things. In speech, you rely on context. In writing, kanji makes them instantly distinguishable. The system that looks like a burden is also doing structural work that simpler alphabets cannot. Japan has discussed simplifying this multiple times. After World War II, during the American occupation, authorities seriously considered forcing Japan to adopt the Latin alphabet entirely. Romaji. Educators from the United States argued that the complexity of the Japanese writing system was a barrier to literacy and modernization. The proposal had real momentum. It didn't happen, and the arguments against it were not merely sentimental. Every book, every legal document, every piece of literature written before the reform would become unreadable within a generation. The entire written history of Japan, 15 centuries of it, would be locked away behind a script most citizens could no longer access. Japanese homophones, which kanji resolves visually, would create consistent ambiguity in plain phonetic text. And the information density that kanji enables would be lost. Japan instead implemented a more modest reform, standardizing the list of daily use kanji, simplifying some characters, regularizing readings, enough to manage the complexity, not enough to abandon it. The writing system survived, not because Japan was resistant to change. Japan was remade almost entirely in the post-war years, but because the writing system was doing things that a simpler replacement genuinely could not do. Japan didn't plan to build the most complex writing system on Earth. It planned to borrow China's. Then it spent 15 centuries patching the mismatch, one layer at a time. Kanji for meaning, hiragana for grammar, katakana for the modern world. 3 systems that shouldn't coexist, built across 15 centuries of improvisation, used fluently by 125 million people every day. No other country uses this mix to the same extent. No other country needed to, because no other country borrowed a writing system so structurally mismatched with its spoken language and then refused, across 15 centuries and several genuine opportunities to stop, to give up on making it work. The script the establishment called women's writing produced the world's first novel. The shorthand monks scribbled in margins became the system for writing the internet. The Chinese characters that didn't fit Japanese grammars are now inseparable from what Japanese is. That is the thing about language. The misfits become the system. The patches become the structure. The workaround becomes the thing itself. If this video made Japanese feel more approachable rather than less, which I hope it did, because understanding why something is complex is the first step to not being afraid of it. Airlearn is a great place to start. Links in the description. See you in the next one.